Revealed, incredible life-changing encounter between millionaire dad and homeless woman on Chris. Chris, a 45-year-old self-made millionaire, stood in the chaos of his penthouse office, staring out at the glittering skyline of Chicago. The city thrived beneath him, a monument to his relentless ambition. Yet, beneath the surface, something gnawed at his heart. His daughter, Lily, was leaving for college in just a few days. The thought tightened his chest like a vice. How could he be a devoted father while maintaining his high-powered image? Overwhelmed by the impending separation, Chris sought solace through service. He volunteered at a local soup kitchen, hoping to reconnect with who he once was. Nothing could prepare him for the warmth he discovered in that small, bustling room. On that cool autumn day, as he stirred steaming pots of soup, he met Sarah, a homeless woman with laughter that sparkled like summer sunshine. Her stories flowed like the soup he served, rich, heartfelt, and laced with the bitter taste of loss and resilience. "Once upon a time, I was a teacher, you know," Sarah shared, her smile lighting up the dreary room. "Then life happened. I lost my way, my kids, my home. But I'm working on finding them again." Chris felt a tug at his heart. Here was a woman who, despite her struggles, radiated hope. He was drawn in, captivated by her tenacity and spirit, and suddenly, he saw a reflection of himself, a man who had lost sight of his roots in the whirlwind of success. As Sarah laughed and recounted her tales of hardship and survival, it ignited something deep within him. The days turned into weeks, and Chris's bond with Sarah grew. He learned of harsh realities, systemic barriers, and the invisible chains that held her in despair. Between serving meals and chatting with the other patrons, he wrestled with conflicting thoughts. How could he nurture his own family while reaching out to aid the vulnerable? Compelled to help, he started navigating the arduous bureaucratic processes with her. Yet, they faced daunting obstacles, prejudice and red tape that threatened to shatter their dreams. Compassion wrestled with the stark reality of life, and then, it all came to a head the day of Lily's college send-off. As excitement buzzed in the air, a desperate call from Sarah shattered his focus. "Chris. I'm in trouble. I might lose the place we worked so hard for. Please, I need your help." Panic washed over him. His daughter's future loomed just beyond the threshold, while Sarah's life teetered on the brink of collapse. The lines of love seemed to blur as Chris grasped for clarity. Should he stand by his daughter's side, celebrating her triumph, or extend a lifeline to the woman who had shown him the meaning of resilience? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Churning with emotions, Chris felt a sudden sense of urgency. He rushed to Lily, his heart pounding. But to his surprise, he found her on the phone with Sarah, laughing, connecting, bridging the gap that he had feared would tear their family apart. Lily saw Sarah not as a charity case but as a mentor who embodied hope, a woman who, despite everything, had the courage to dream of a better life. With emotions swirling, Chris stood on the brink of something profound. Could this unexpected connection redefine what family truly meant? Would he dare to honor both bonds, or would he risk losing everything? In a world where love faced unyielding struggles, he had to choose. The air felt electric with possibilities, and the question hung heavy in the room: what does it mean to truly serve those you love? As the college send-off drew near, Chris took a breath, waiting to see which way his heart would guide him. Would he step into the future with his daughter, or would he reach out to lend a hand to someone lost in the shadows? Chris stood in the doorway, caught in a moment that felt like a slow-motion dream. The laughter and joy in Lily's voice contrasted sharply with the urgency in his heart. She was glowing, her excitement infectious as she spoke with Sarah, yet he felt an ache in knowing her world was about to change. Dad. Lily's excited call cut through the tension. She turned, her phone still pressed against her ear. You've got to hear this. Sarah was telling me these amazing stories. I can't believe everything she has been through. It's incredible. Sarah's laughter echoed warmly, pulling Chris further into the scene. But he hesitated, unsure how to step into this world where Sarah and Lily were beginning to intertwine like threads in a tapestry. It was beautiful, and yet, overwhelming. Lily, he finally managed, striving to keep his voice steady. Are you sure about this? Dad, Sarah is inspiring. You've shown me the importance of helping others. Why not embrace this? Her words sent a shiver down his spine. A flicker of realization ignited, this moment could reshape their family's narrative. He hadn't only taught Lily about success in business but also about humanity. Yet, the path forward felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As he watched Lily's eyes dance with excitement, something shifted within Chris. The choice before him was clearer. His fear of losing her was met with the warmth blooming in their connection with Sarah. Maybe, just maybe, they could do this together. I think I need to talk to her, Chris said slowly, the gravity of his decision hanging in the air. He stepped forward with resolve, joining Lily on the call, unsure yet hopeful. Sarah? Chris pulled in a deep breath. I know things are tough. Tell me how I can help. Silence hung in the air for just a heartbeat, surprised but hopeful. Sarah's voice trembled on the other end. You'd really do that? I didn't want to burden you. No. This is about family now, he replied, surprising himself with the fierceness in his tone. In that moment, he felt a connection beyond business acumen, beyond his millionaire identity. Lily squeezed his hand, silent encouragement in her touch. Together, they were stepping into new waters, confronting their fears and reaching out with compassion. We want to find a way to keep your home, Sarah, Lily spoke up. Let us work together. A rush of gratitude poured through the phone. Chris felt an unspoken bond tighten, not just with Sarah, but with his daughter, whose heart mirrored his own. For the next hour, plans came together, woven from hope, determination, and the kind of love that transcends barriers. Chris found himself learning more about the bureaucracy that threatened to drown Sarah, about the programs that could offer her support. His mind raced, ideas spinning as the enormity of their path ahead swelled, but just as enthusiasm took over, a shadow crept back into his mind. What about Lily? College started tomorrow, her independence flourishing just as he grasped deeper connections with others. He turned toward her, uncertainty filling his gaze. Are you ready for college? He asked, the words barely escaping his lips. I am, she said, her expression steady. But this doesn't have to be a choice between us and her. We can do this together, Dad. Staring into her eyes, Chris discerned an undeniable truth. It was never just about one or the other. Together, they could create a legacy of love, truly serving not just their own family, but embracing the greater family of humanity. As they delved deeper into discussions about resources, programs, and possibilities, Chris felt a pinprick of doubt. Could they really pull this off, or would their lives shift into chaos instead? Just then, Sarah's voice broke through the whirlwind of thoughts. Thank you, Chris, and Lily. You're already changing my life. Chris's heart swelled with hope, yet anxiety simmered beneath the surface. They were venturing into unknown territory, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the challenge before them would test their newfound connection beyond all measure. He glanced at Lily, a quiet smile on her face, and felt the pulling tension of the future. Would it be possible to cultivate new bonds while nurturing the old? As laughter faded into the air, another thought surfaced, heavy with implications. Where would this journey take them next? Would they find strength in their unity, or would they split apart under pressure? The first light of dawn crept through the window, illuminating the small living room where Chris and Lily sat, each lost in thought. Lily glanced at her father, her heart heavy yet hopeful. She could see him wrestling with the enormity of their decision. The excitement from last night's conversation with Sarah was still fresh, but the reality of what waited ahead loomed larger than ever. "Dad," she said softly, breaking the silence. "Promise me we'll do everything we can for Sarah." Chris shifted, a tightness in his chest. He wanted to promise her, to give her that reassurance, but the weight of the burden ahead pressed down. "I want to help, Lily." But he hesitated, searching for the words. "What if we can't make a difference?" Lily shook her head. "It's not about fixing everything in a day. It's about taking steps together." Her eyes sparkled with determination, igniting something within Chris. "All right, we'll take those steps. Together." He smiled, but doubt flickered behind his eyes. With the decision made, the two sprang into action, fueled by a newfound energy. They gathered their devices, sketching out plans for a non-profit that would help Sarah and others like her. They brainstormed ideas, weaving together stories of hope and resilience with practical resources that could uplift those in need. Chris marveled at how quickly Lily operated. She moved from one concept to the next with a grace he had never seen, and it filled him with pride. Hours flew by as they mapped out a rough framework for their initiative. But as the enthusiasm swelled, so did the challenges. They faced questions about funding, resources, and needed manpower. Chris felt the uncertainty creeping back, drowning out the initial excitement. "Lily, we can't do this alone. It's bigger than us." "Then let us find help," she shot back, her confidence like a beacon. "We can talk to people at the college, they might have resources, or even groups interested in outreach." Chris nodded, realizing she was right. The grassroots support from the community could bring life to their new venture. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, and his heart raced. "Hey, I've been thinking about the garden project. I want to incorporate that too. It could help with fresh vegetables for those in need. Thoughts?" Lily's eyes lit up as she leaned over his shoulder to read the message. She's a genius. "This could be the dual approach: food sovereignty and housing security," she suggested, her voice alight with creativity. Chris felt like they were building something beautiful together. Yet, beneath her excitement, he couldn't shake the anxiety. Would Sarah truly be in it with them, and how much of a sacrifice would it take to dedicate their lives to help others? Before he could voice his concerns, the doorbell rang, shattering his train of thought. Both turned to look at each other, curiosity mixed with apprehension. "It's too early for visitors," he remarked while walking toward the door. As he opened it, he was met with a figure standing awkwardly on the welcome mat. It was Sarah, her eyes wide and filled with a mixture of hope and fear. She looked different than during their last call, a bit more tired, a bit more vulnerable, but determined. "Chris, I need to talk," she said, her voice quaking slightly. "It's urgent." Chris's heart sank, dread creeping back in. What could possibly be wrong? "Come in," he said, stepping aside to let her in. Lily, excitement replaced with concern, mirrored his apprehension as Sarah stepped inside. Once settled, Chris felt the tension coil tighter. He exchanged wary glances with Lily, recognizing they were about to embark on a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty. "What's going on, Sarah?" he asked, gauging the emotional weight of the moment. Her eyes darted to Lily and back to him. "You might want to sit down for this." A chill washed over the room as an unsettling thought struck Chris. What if their intentions to help had unanticipated consequences? He took a deep breath, fully aware that in the next few moments, everything they had imagined could be turned upside down. How would they respond to what lay just beneath the surface? The air thickened with anticipation as Sarah prepared to share what would shape their journey going forward. Sarah took a moment, her hands twisting together nervously in her lap. Chris could see the conflict in her eyes, the kind that hinted at secrets too heavy to carry alone. "I didn't want to get you involved in this," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "but I need your help more than ever." What has happened? Chris pressed gently, trying to encourage her. Lily leaned closer, a mix of anxiety and empathy swirling between them. They're building well, a shelter. They're planning to close it down, she revealed, her voice trembling as she spoke. It's where I've been staying. Without it, I don't know where I'd go. Chris felt the air leave his lungs. Close down? He repeated, his heart pounding. Why? They say they don't have the funding, Sarah explained, her face drawn with worry. It's happening next week. I thought that maybe our nonprofit could help. Maybe even save it. Lily slid off her chair, leaning in closer to Sarah. We could mobilize people. If we spread the word, maybe we can gather support, she chimed in, her eyes brightening with urgency. Sarah wrung her hands, her voice shaking as she continued. What if people don't care? What if no one wants to help? The truth is I'm scared. Without a place, I'm worried I'll end up right back where I started. Chris watched her, feeling the weight of her words. The reality of what they were trying to do suddenly felt so much deeper, more intense. You've survived so much already, he said, wanting to instill some courage in her. You can't give up now. We can't. What if there are too many obstacles? Sarah whispered, eyes clouded with fear. What if this is all hopeless? No. Lily's voice rang with conviction. It's not hopeless. We have to try. If we can help even one person, it matters. Chris felt his heart swell with pride for his daughter, a fierce determination shining through her young face. Yet, doubt lingered at the edges of his mind. But what if we fail? What if our efforts go unnoticed? Then we try again, Lily insisted. Just like you said, it's about taking steps together. We can't let fear hold us back. The words sunk in, and Chris could feel the tide of hopelessness begin to ebb. With one glance shared between them, it arrived their collective resolve. Okay, Chris finally said, a spark igniting in the pit of his stomach. Let us do this. We'll fight for that shelter. But we'll need to move fast. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of relief and hope washing over her weary face. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't think it was ever going to be this way again. That's the power of community, Chris replied, his heart steadying as he took in the moment. When we come together, we can face anything. Lily jumped up from her seat. I'll start drafting a plan. Maybe a community meeting at the shelter so we can get people involved. Chris watched her enthusiasm ripple through the room, filling it with energy and purpose. Suddenly, the worries about funding and resources seemed lighter, manageable even. Together, they could carve a path forward. As they began sketching out their strategy, a thought struck Chris, cutting through the excitement. What if they succeeded? What if, against all odds, they could save the shelter and prevent Sarah from losing her home? Would they then be ready for whatever came next, whatever challenges would arise in this newfound mission? The daunting task ahead loomed larger than ever, as Chris's heart raced with both fear and anticipation. Could they truly turn hope into action? The clock ticked loudly in the background, accentuating the urgency they all felt. They had no time to waste, for Sarah's future and perhaps their own hung delicately in the balance. Chris felt the adrenaline coursing through him as he scribbled down ideas on a whiteboard. He leaned closer, his dry erase markers flying across the surface as he captured Lily's input. We need to create a social media campaign, something that pulls people in, he said, glancing at Sarah, who was still sitting there, unsure but hopeful. Lily nodded eagerly. What about a hashtag? Something catchy that we can use to draw attention to the shelter, like Save the Shelter? She beamed, her eyes alight with excitement. Great idea. Chris agreed, feeling the momentum shift. We can reach out to local news stations too. If we can get someone to cover our meeting at the shelter, it'll spread like wildfire. As they brainstormed, Sarah shifted uncomfortably. But what if it doesn't work? What if they don't listen? Her voice cracked, and Chris felt a pang of concern for her. That's why we need to raise our voices now, he reassured her, glancing between her and his daughter. We have to show them that this place matters. It's not just bricks and mortar, it's lives people's lives. He could see Sarah processing his words, her fear battling with a hint of determination. It was the first glimpse of the fighter hidden beneath her delicate exterior. Let's make flyers, Lily suggested, her enthusiasm undeterred. We can hand them out in the neighborhood. Maybe even to businesses for support. They might have resources we can tap into. Good thinking. Chris replied, feeling the energy in the room shift. Suddenly, the weight of the burden felt a little lighter. Let's divide ourselves up. I'll talk to local businesses, and you two handle the social media side of things. He turned to Sarah. Can you help with the outreach? Maybe speak to people at the shelter? Sarah hesitated, but after a moment, she nodded. I can try, she said, her voice steadier than before. If people hear my story, if it can help exactly, Chris encouraged, his heart swelling with admiration for her bravery. Your journey matters. You give this fight a face. That night, they stayed up late, poring over ideas and plans. Chris felt a bond forming between them, not just through the shared purpose, but through the vulnerable moments that allowed them to connect on a deeper level. Each idea sparked hope, weaving their lives into a tapestry of resilience and determination. Days passed, filled with meetings, coordination, and community engagement. Chris found himself opening up to Sarah more, while Lily's tenacity rallied people behind their cause. Local businesses began to chip in with donations, and social media buzz grew louder, yet, amidst the whirlwind of their efforts, doubt crept in. It cast a shadow over Chris's heart. He woke up one morning, the weight of the world pressing down on him. What if they were just spinning their wheels? What if this was all for nothing? He glanced at the notes scattered across the kitchen table and paused. The shelter had become more than a building, it was a lifeline, a sign of hope for Sarah and many others. I can't let her down, he murmured to himself, pushing away the self-doubt. At that moment, Chris made a promise to himself and to Sarah. He wouldn't stop fighting for her, for their community, for the chance to turn this desperation into action. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message from Lily, got a meeting set up with the mayor for tomorrow. He's interested. Ready to bring your a game? His heart leapt in his chest. This could be their chance. But what if the mayor held the key to everything? Would he be willing to listen, to help them turn the tide? The question hung in the air, leaving Chris to ponder the infinite possibilities before them. Chris barely slept that night. Thoughts of the upcoming meeting with the mayor raced through his mind, tangling with the weight of his responsibilities. He rolled over, glancing at the clock, which felt like it was ticking in slow motion. The sun peeked through the blinds, casting stripes of light across his face. He finally dragged himself out of bed, determined to channel his anxiety into action. After a quick shower, he dressed in his best button-down shirt. I'm doing this for Sarah and the shelter, he reminded himself. He made a mental checklist of everything he needed, presentations, flyers, and notes from their brainstorming sessions. Lily was already awake and munching on cereal when Chris walked into the kitchen. Her face lit up when she saw him. Are you nervous? She asked, smiling through a mouthful of food. A little, Chris admitted, grabbing an apple. Just remember what we talked about, she said, her confidence unshakable. We're not asking for much. Just a chance to be heard. As they left the house, they met Sarah outside, pacing back and forth nervously. She wore a vibrant teal dress that matched the message she was carrying, hope. Chris noticed the way she was fidgeting with her fingers. You ready? He called out. She looked up, her eyes wide as if she had just been awakened from a dream. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied, trying to sound confident, but there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her. The three of them drove to City Hall, a sleek building that always seemed to loom over the neighborhood. Chris parked the car and took a deep breath, trying to shake off the nervous energy buzzing within him. They walked inside, and despite the polished floors and the flowing crowds, it felt like entering a different world, one that was often too far removed from people like Sarah. "Let us stick together," Chris said, holding Sarah's shoulder gently. "This is our moment." As they waited in the reception area, Chris stole glances at Sarah. The anxiety on her face was palpable. "You're doing this for everyone who needs support," he whispered. "You've got this." Just before they were called in, a young woman in the corner caught Chris's eye. She was sitting on the floor, cradling a tattered backpack. Her eyes were glazed over, lost in a world that Chris recognized all too well. Something tugged at his heart, and he turned to Sarah. "Why don't you take a moment to talk to her?" I don't know," Sarah stammered, hesitating as she looked back at Chris. "Just share your experience. You never know how it might resonate," he encouraged, giving her a gentle push. With a deep breath, Sarah slowly approached the woman, and Chris watched as she knelt down and began to speak. A wave of emotions washed over him: admiration, concern, and hope. This was Sarah's moment to shine, and he could see a beautiful connection blossoming between them. Meanwhile, the mayor's aide stepped out, calling for them. "Mr. Thompson, Ms. Miller, and Ms. Johnson? The mayor will see you now." Chris exchanged a quick glance with Lily. They needed to go in, but his heart ached for Sarah. He hoped she wouldn't lose the momentum of that connection. As they walked into the meeting room, the urgency of the moment weighed on him. This was the tipping point, but would they actually reach the mayor's heart? With the meeting door clicking shut behind them, Chris steadied himself. "Let us make this count," he whispered, ready to lay it all on the line. But just as he began to speak, a thought struck him. What if it wasn't just about the shelter? What if Sarah's story could change the world for others like her? The question lingered in the air as he began to address the man who could help them bring hope back to the community. As Chris cleared his throat, he could feel the weight of expectation settling on his shoulders. The room was sterile, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and the tension rising from the hard-eyed mayor across the table. Chris caught a glimpse of Sarah's face before turning to the mayor. It was a mixture of fear and fierce determination, a reflection of all that hung in the balance for them. "Thank you for meeting with us today," Chris started, his voice steadier than he felt. The mayor nodded, arms crossed, already calculating. "We appreciate your time," Lily chimed in beside Chris, her voice bright, cutting through the silence. "We're here to talk about the shelter and the vital role it plays in the community." As Chris spoke about statistics and the lives impacted, he couldn't shake the thought of Sarah's encounter with the girl outside. The connection they had formed was what this meeting was really about, a bridge between the faceless numbers and real human stories. "But the data don't tell the full story," Chris continued, his gaze shifting to Sarah. "True change happens when someone opens up their heart." When the mayor's sharp eyes darted towards Sarah, she shifted in her seat, visibly trying to gather herself. Chris nodded to her, urging her to seize this opportunity. "Sarah has an incredible story," he said, gesturing toward her, as though presenting a priceless artifact. "It's not just about statistics, it's about real people." Sarah blinked, her heart racing. The moment felt surreal, like being thrust into the spotlight without any warning. But Chris's unwavering support steeled her nerves. I was once on the streets, battling against everything life threw my way," she began, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength with each word. "I found myself lost, but I also found hope, not just in a shelter, but within myself and in the connections I made with others who were struggling too." The mayor leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Sarah continued, weaving her narrative with vivid imagery. She talked about the nights spent feeling invisible, but how the shelter breathed life back into her dreams. She shared how the kindness of strangers turned fleeting moments into life-changing opportunities. As she spoke, Chris noticed the faintest twitch of empathy on the mayor's face. It was a subtle shift, but it sparked a flicker of hope in Chris's chest. "I want everyone out there, just like me, to experience that same hope," Sarah implored, locking eyes with the mayor. "We can make a difference together. But we need your support to keep the doors open, to create more paths for those searching for a place to belong." A hushed silence followed her words, the kind that wraps around you like a warm blanket. The tension in the room shifted, and for a moment, it outweighed the overwhelming pressure. "What you're asking for is significant," the mayor finally said, his voice steady but softer now. "Funding isn't just about money, it's about priorities. How do I know it will make a difference?" Chris felt his heart race again. This was a pivotal moment. "Because it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet," he said, his voice rising with conviction. "This is about human lives. And when we invest in people, we create a stronger community for everyone." Chris noticed the change in the mayor's posture, the faintest hint of introspection flickering in his eyes. But before he could respond, a voice burst through the door. "Mr. Mayor, we need you in the hallway. There's a situation." The mayor's expression hardened as he excused himself, leaving the room abruptly. Just like that, the fragile hope felt deflated. Chris and Sarah exchanged glances, their hearts racing with uncertainty. Had they broken through? Or were they destined to remain unheard? And as they sat in that moment of terrifying stillness, Chris couldn't help but wonder, would they have the chance to finish what they started, or was this just the end of a dream that never truly began? Chris ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling just below the surface. The glimmer of hope Sarah had ignited felt like it was slipping away with the mayor. He looked at her, his heart aching for what they were trying to accomplish. "It's not over," he whispered, barely loud enough for her to hear. "We can still make him see." She nodded, but her eyes betrayed a hint of doubt. "What if he doesn't come back? What if that was our only chance?" "Then we'll find another way," Chris replied, determination hardening within him. The door creaked open, and the mayor stepped back inside. There was an urgency in his stride, an energy that hadn't existed moments before. Chris held his breath, waiting for the mayor to address them again, hoping for a flicker of understanding. "Sorry for the interruption," the mayor said, his tone clipped but eyes still attentive. "I was just needing to handle a minor crisis outside, but the situation can wait. Let us continue." Chris felt a surge of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Mr. Mayor." "We appreciate." "Let us skip the pleasantries," the mayor interjected, cutting him off with a wave of his hand. "You said this isn't just about numbers. What's it really about then? What's at stake for you both?" Sarah took a deep breath, her courage rallying back. "It's about lives, sir. It's about giving people the support they need to make it out. Like I said, I was once lost, and it's not just me. Every person who walks through those doors has a story. Each one of them matters." "Fine," the mayor said, his brow furrowing in thought. "But how do I know your shelter is where that change happens? How can I be assured it won't just be another drop in the ocean?" Chris sensed the pivotal moment before them. Because relationships are created there. Hope is cultivated through community. This shelter isn't just a roof, it's a sanctuary for transformation. We might be strangers, but we can build something meaningful together. The mayor leaned back, folding his arms once more, but there was a glimmer of contemplation behind his eyes. "I've seen too many initiatives fail, watched too many promises fizzle out." His voice had softened, his face reflected a struggle between skepticism and empathy. "You really believe you can change that?" "Yes," Sarah said firmly. "Not me alone. All of us together. Just as I was once uplifted by others, I want to pay that forward. But I need your help to ensure other voices like mine can be heard." An electric silence filled the air. Chris could feel the walls closing in, the weight of the moment pressing down. Would he see the truth in their words? Suddenly, an aide knocked on the door, eyes wide, interrupting the moment again. "Sir, we have a situation with a family at the shelter we need to address immediately. They're about to be evicted due to the storm, a woman and her 3 children." The mayor's expression shifted again, turning serious. He stood quickly, looking conflicted. "I'll be back," he said, clearly torn. But in his haste, he glanced back at Chris and Sarah. "Just give me a moment." He was gone before he could finish the thought, leaving the air thick with unanswered questions. Sarah sat back, her eyes wet. "What are we doing, Chris? It feels like we're fighting an uphill battle." "We are," he admitted. "But we can't give up. We're fighting for every story left untold." Just then, a small note fluttered from Lily's folder, catching the light. Chris snatched it, unfolding it quickly. "Remember, you can't change the world alone." It was unsigned, completely anonymous, but the weight of its message sent a chill down his spine. They had no choice but to keep pushing forward. "Let's try one more time," Chris urged Sarah, and against the backdrop of uncertainty, a glint of hope flickered within. "But this time, we're going to seize the moment." As they steeled themselves for whatever was next, they didn't notice the mayor just outside the door, caught in a moment of silence, listening. Would their next words be enough to break through the barriers in his heart? Or would it all lead to another closed door, another chance missed? In the moment of stillness, Chris felt a rush of possibility. He glanced at Sarah, her features etched with worry but also resilience. She was ready, almost trembling with nervous energy, as if the weight of their mission had become a force to move mountains. "Do you think he'll return?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I have to believe he will," Chris replied, clenching his fists, determination coursing through him. Seconds felt like hours, and just when doubt threatened to seep in again, the door swung wide. The mayor re-entered, a flicker of exhaustion in his eyes but also something else, an understanding. "Sorry about that," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Family emergencies aren't the best time for discussions." He scanned the room, his gaze landing on the clutter of papers and the folder with Lily's notes still on the table. The moment felt pivotal. "Well?" he prompted, waiting for them to continue. "Mr. Mayor, you said you've seen too many initiatives fail," Chris began, his voice steady. "But what if our shelter becomes an example of success? We have a chance to actually make a difference, to truly affect lives. Not just numbers." Sarah folded her hands tightly on her lap, igniting the conversation further. "It'll be challenging, but we all have a role to play. You can help us tap into the community businesses, volunteers. Let's not chase after shadows of the past." A thoughtful look crossed the mayor's face. "You think it's that easy? Just rallying folks together?" "Well, it's a lot more complicated than you're implying." "I know it's complicated," Chris acknowledged. "But it starts with belief, your belief. Our belief. That compassion can drive real change." The mayor shifted slightly in his chair, studying them. "What about the woman and her children?" He gestured vaguely toward the door. "Shouldn't I attend to that? What makes you think I can, in good conscience, invest time in you two right now? Because those families out there, the ones suffering, they depend on leaders who care." Sarah's voice shook but didn't falter. "What if that woman was someone you loved? Wouldn't you want someone to fight for her?" The air thickened with unspoken emotions, the kind that pulls at heartstrings and challenges one's beliefs. The mayor leaned forward, his resolve wavering. I don't want to fail them again." Chris sensed the shift. "Then partner with us. The moment you act will set a ripple effect. Every child, every story, they all matter. You saw the potential with your eyes, let's not let it slip away." The mayor sighed deeply, almost reluctantly. "I can't make promises, but I'm willing to listen to see if there's truly a spark of hope amidst the chaos." It felt like a small victory, yet the weight of what lay ahead loomed ahead of them. As they began discussing logistics, a knock interrupted once more. The aide peeked in, urgency etched across their face. "Sir, miss, there's another family incoming. They were caught in the storm and need immediate refuge." "Then let us go," Chris said before the mayor could respond. "We have to show others that we mean business, that lives are worth more than bureaucracy." The mayor hesitated but stood, an unspoken commitment forming as he followed them out the door, the three stars of hope walking into the unknown together. Just as Chris stepped out, he caught sight of a face familiar but unexpected, a past acquaintance, someone whose presence had once been a comforting reminder of better days. "John?" Chris breathed, disbelief flooding him. Could this be another twist in their fight for hope? Would John's story intertwine with theirs, pushing them even closer to the change they desperately sought? Chris couldn't believe his eyes. John was standing there, looking slightly worn but undeniably familiar. They had crossed paths years ago at a charity event, both eager to make a difference. In that moment, Chris's heart raced with every question possible, yet one shone brightest above the rest. Was John still the man he once knew? "Chris." John's face broke into a smile, but it quickly faded as he took in the intense situation around them. "What is going on?" As Chris quickly explained the urgency of their meeting and the shelter's impending closure, he could see recognition dawn in John's eyes. "I had no idea," John said, shaking his head. "I could help. My company would be interested in getting involved." Hope surged through Chris and filled the space between them like sunlight. "Really? You'd do that?" "Absolutely. We can sponsor the shelter, get the word out, and I can connect you with others," John insisted, his energy contagious. Lily watched as pieces shifted together. "This is it. This is the spark," she exclaimed, her excitement radiating through the tense atmosphere. Together, they rushed back into the meeting with the mayor. "Mr. Mayor," Chris said, gripping the edge of the table. "We have a game-changing opportunity. John's company is willing to support the shelter." The mayor's brow lifted, surprise flickering across his face. "Is that true?" John nodded firmly, filling the room with both confidence and fervor. "This is a chance to rally support, to show others that tangible change can happen." The air crackled with anticipation as the mayor leaned back, considering this new information. "If I back the initiative, it could create momentum, spark interest." "Exactly," Chris interjected, sensing the shift in energy. "We're here to advocate for an entire community. Nothing would resonate more than knowing a local business cares." As he spoke, the mayor's demeanor softened, and Chris prayed that this moment wouldn't slip away. "I'll back this," the mayor said slowly, and unity surged through the room. "Let us develop a partnership that reinforces our community and fights for each person's right to a safe space." The moment felt electric, powerful. Just then, an aide rushed into the room, breathless. "Sir, we have families lining up outside who need assistance right now. It's urgent." The mayor nodded, steel in his spine. "Show them to the shelter. We'll get them the help they need." Chris, Lily, Sarah, and John followed him outside into the chaos, a whirlwind of worried faces. But something beautiful happened. As they began communicating the support flowing in, a sense of hope spread. Chris could see it in the eyes of the shelter staff as they rallied volunteers and supplies, tensions eased, and joy flickered. The unity of spirits turned desperation into resilience. "We're standing for more than just walls," Sarah said, her voice ringing with conviction. "We're standing for family." Through long hours, they worked closely, coordinating resources while sharing laughter and tears. Every small attempt, every connection made, ignited hope. The community began buzzing with support, and the shelter soon transformed, a heart in Chicago beating once more. Days blurred into weeks as Chris, Lily, and Sarah found purpose in their work. Supported by John and the mayor's office, they solidified their nonprofit, bringing together families and friends, bridging gaps, and rewriting the stories of those for whom life had become a battle. As summer sun sank low on the horizon, casting a warm golden glow, Chris looked around at the shelter that had become a home. Families shared meals and stories, creating bonds forged in shared experience. Tears of joy filled Sarah's eyes as she hugged Chris and Lily tightly. "You all changed my life," she whispered, radiating gratitude. In that moment, Chris felt a beautiful contentment blossom. This journey had transformed him, teaching him that self-made success gains purpose when intertwined with love and compassion. Together, Chris said softly, gazing at the faces illuminated with joy, "We can accomplish anything." As they stood hand in hand beneath the sky, Chris realized it wasn't just the shelter they were saving. They had built themselves and each other a legacy of hope. Now, feel the impact of this story and join our journey. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you beyond limits. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, making sure others see this message of hope. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. How did it touch your heart? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share a spark of hope.